The following is a presentation of the Belly Up Sports Media Network.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of the Bayou Bengal Bites. And it's solo this week as Chet is traveling around for Mother's Day weekend. So an early happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there. And we're going to be talking about all LSU news. We're going to go through the rundown here, as you see on the right hand of the screen. Aneesha Morrow is an LSU Tiger. And we'll go all the way down to previewing LSU softball and SEC tourney. So let's waste no time. Let's get right into the big news that dropped this past week. That is right. Aneesha Morrow transfers to LSU, and the rich just keep getting richer for the reigning national champs. A couple of weeks ago, Louisville's transfer Haley Van Lith, the number one overall transfer portal. Now the Tigers get Morrow, who was the number 2 prospect. And I think that this is huge. This is going to be – we saw LaDasia Williams, what she could do down the post, and now you get a power forward replacement with Morrow. She was very consistent, averaged over 20 points a game in her freshman and sophomore year, and that really trickled on down into 2022, which she averaged 25.7 points a game and also 13.2 rebounds. So you're going to get a monster down in the paint. I've watched some tape on her. She really has a nice jump shot as well. So not only is she going to get some rebounds as well, maybe she'll get some Angel Reese numbers. We'll get a couple of triple-doubles, little doubles in between. But I think that this is a fantastic get for LSU. Kim Mulkey is just doing big things here, and it's only year 2. In year 1, like I mentioned a couple of weeks ago on episode 1, Kim Mulkey comes into Baton Rouge. If you remember the press conference, those banners right there, I'm going to win a national championship, and that's exactly what year, as the Tigers are going to be loaded in SEC. Now, looking at the SEC in women's basketball, obviously you know that you got Tennessee. They're going to be consistent. They did lose a couple of their key shooters, but they'll still be a very good team as well. And then you also have South Carolina as well. And they're going to be losing Aaliyah Boston. They're going to be losing Zia Cook as well. So that's going to be 2 players right there. That's going to be big for them as well. So we'll see what Dawn Staley does. Dawn Staley is also a good recruiter for South Carolina. But for LSU, you got to feel good if you're a Tiger fan. I mean, what you got coming back right now, you have Angel Reese down the paint. Now you add Morrow. You also have Michaela Williams, one of the top prospects high school. So not only you have the number 1 transfer portal class as well, but you also have a recruiting class coming in the high school realm as well. So they have a recruiting shutdown right now. So LSU women's basketball, the recruiting shutdown is going to happen this week. So they won't be active on social media, but this is definitely a big get. You look at, what you have returning back. Like I mentioned, you have Angel Reese. You have Johnson, that freshman. She was really tremendous during her freshman season. Didn't really have the points per game that she had, but you could see that she was slowly developing throughout, game number 1 all the way to the national championship game against Auburn. Then you'll have some quality girls coming off of the bench, Kateri Poole last year at POA. You also have Samaya Smith. That's also going to be huge as well. So this is going to be a loaded team, probably going to be the number 1 team overall. I would not be surprised if the AP poll automatically puts LSU for not only what they did this past season with going on the way to the Final Four and ultimately winning the national championship, but also continuing that championship mindset and going at these girls, Aneesha Morrow, the DePaul transfer, post player, and, for power forward as well. And also get Lymph as well, which is a perimeter threat as well. shoot that really real. So you got to be really excited for the next season. I'm sure that season ticket sales are going to be going up through the roof. So it's definitely a nice time to be a Tiger. But we're going to go on now to the Diamond and see what LSU did versus the Auburn Tigers this week as the dropped their first series to Auburn. So let's get right. And this was definitely not unexpected here. If you saw Bayou Bengal Bites episode last week's show, Chet went ahead and said that this was going to be a sweep, and I said that this was going to be a 2 out of 3. That was not the case. Now, I didn't overlook Auburn at all. This was one of the hottest teams in the country, coming off of a 2 out of 3 series victory over South Carolina. This team just had the feel of that they were going to do something real special here this week. And I think that Auburn side, if you're an Auburn fan, that you got to feel really good where you're standing. We looked at their ERAs. They were inflated. But honestly, Auburn's pitching staff did a tremendous job against his offense. Now, on LSU, on now to game number 1. We'll go through all the 3 games, then we'll do key takeaways from the series and what the Tigers need to do going ahead to really assure that spot, again, that top 8 national seed, and getting to Omaha, like how the expectations have really mounted on this team. But as you know, if you looked at the polls, whether it's D1 baseball, whether it's college, baseball America, LSU's no longer the number 1 team in the land anymore. Wake Forest, the Demon Deacons, took over the number 1 spot since they got 2 out of 3 over Boston College. So LSU, your Fine Tigers, are now number 2 in the country. Now, I wouldn't be panicking about that at all. Like I've said multiple times on this show, I know that this is only a 3-week show. The number 1 overall seed hasn't won the national championship since the 1999. Looking at last year's, Tennessee loss in the Super Regional as well. So not only the best teams, you could be 50-plus win team, not even make it to Omaha. That's just how baseball works. It's baseball. But I wouldn't be worried as well. Honestly, as a LSU fan, I would rather have the 2 overall seed and not have that target back anymore. So we'll see if LSU can rebound this week. They face Northwestern State in the midweek game on Tuesday night. That'll be wrapped up whenever this is going on, and then they'll be facing Mississippi State at the box. But let's get into 3 games here on the Plains. So game 1 went about as good as LSU could have got it. And the first inning, Gavin Dugas, the first pitch, he gets hit by pitch. That's what he does. And then Trey Morgan hits a 2-run bomb to right field to put up 2-0. And then Paul Skeens, what an outing it was. 15 strikeouts. I think that tied, or it was the most strikeouts by an LSU pitcher. You just got to think to yourself, like, if this Paul Skeens, how many conference wins or how many overall wins would this be? Maybe this is a completely different team, but Paul Skeens is going to be the number 2 overall MLB draft prospect behind Cruz. It's just not even a question. Maybe he gets even to the number 1, depending on how the draft does. Maybe the Pirates want to go a little bit cheaper, go with a high school prospect, or do they want to go with one of these top prospects out of LSU? But game 1 win is about as good as you went. Paul Skeens gave you 8 innings. Now, the offense outside of Trey Morgan didn't really do too much. Trey Morgan got all 3 RBIs. He got that RBI double in the middle of the innings, and he also got that 2-run home run in the bottom of the first inning as well. But you go on, Paul Skeens give you 8 innings. You bring in they were going to bring in Griffin Herring, but they decided to go with Thatcher Hurd. And once again, Thatcher Hurd slammed the doors shut, and I'm hoping and praying, I'm sure that all LSU fans are hoping and praying that Thatcher Hurd has slowed her. Now, that would be huge. If you can get Thatcher Hurd turning that page, going into the season, coming out of UCLA, there was a lot of expectations that he was going to be the solid number 3 starter. He gets a lot of Sunday starts, and it's just not the same. And in the midweek, he gets look good there. So it's been a couple of starts, back-to-back, whether that's a start in the midweek or coming out of the bullpen in a safe situation like he did on Friday. But really good job by Thatcher Hurd. I think that the bullpen slammed the door shut, did their job in game number 1. Now let's flip on the page to Saturday and Sunday, where it didn't go so well for the purple and gold as LSU dropped game number 2, 8-6. Now, this was an offense of firepower. LSU was going up against Auburn's ace. Auburn decided to flip their rotation. They went with one of their key bullpen guys in game number one, and then they went with their ace, who was a lefty. And I think that LSU's hitters did a good job against Vidal in this one. I think that he got their pitch count up. He didn't even last 4 innings. LSU's offense, though, couldn't get the job done when the bases were loaded, especially whenever Dylan Cruz came up. And now we talked about Dylan Cruz so many times on this show. He's a really good hitter, but now he's down to earth on this one. Maybe he's in a slump. Who knows? But I'm sure that he's going to get back into it. It was just not the weekend for him. Maybe he's human. Who knows? But I think that Dylan Cruz will definitely get back on track in this one. So Tigers had plenty of opportunities in this one. On the pitching side, it looked like Ty Floyd was going to outpace Paul Skeens in strikeouts. Before you get 9 strikeouts, then all of a sudden you have ask of who's thrown out. Is it the guy, the video scout guy, or is it Josh Jordan? It was ultimately Josh Jordan that got thrown out as well. So that was just a weird scenario as well. You saw Auburn's manager Butch Thompson come out on the field arguing about that. You saw Jay Johnson coming out on the field as that. But after that, that was the turning point of the weekend. Ty Floyd completely lost it from that start. I mean, it just walks. The command was off. But I just hope, you got to hope and pray that you get the time because the last couple of starts have been really up and down, especially the road starts. He's been really solid. Ole Miss, he goes 8 innings, gives you a great outing. This one against Auburn, he goes 4 innings, looked really good, really sharp. Auburn's hitters could not really get that. He was really having a command of that breaking ball as well. If he can get that breaking ball down, get the command up, then I think that LSU can find their number. Just can he find that consistency of him? I just don't know. But he has to if LSU wants to make it to Omaha once again. But let's go on now to Sunday. And Sunday, which is a complete disaster from start to finish. Gavin Dugas hits that leadoff home run. Tigers are feeling good. They're saying, okay, I know we lost game 2, but now we lead off of a home run. We're up 1-0. The offense is going to be churning. And then you get to the bottom of the first, and this is where all hell broke loose. Christian Little got the start, and he could not find the command at all. LSU had to go through 3 pitchers. And the top of the first inning, they decided to go with Griffin Herring. He didn't have his command. And they go with Guidry. You got to tip my cap to Gavin Guidry in this one. He really slammed the door in this one. It was a bases-loaded situation. But even with all that, LSU is down 6-1 after the first. And then after that, Auburn's offense just – but if there were to take some positives, I would say Riley Cooper is definitely a positive, giving you 3 innings of baseball. He did give up that leadoff home run in the middle innings during that, but that was just a complete disaster over the game. Probably if you were comparing a game, it would be the Iowa game. I don't know if y'all remember that. Iowa's pitched their ace, and Iowa run-ruled LSU in the Round Rock Classic back at the start of the season. So if there are comparisons, that it's going to be that. But obviously the main issue and the main takeaway from this one is that the pitching is definitely a main concern. I mean, it's not really, a flashing light anymore. It's starting to turn into a panic mode for this LSU team. The offensive side, they've definitely, this wasn't their best weekend, but they had some opportunities, especially with the bases loaded. Whenever Dylan Cruz came up, whenever Beloso came up a couple of times as well. But the pitching outside of Skeens is definitely going to be what's going to be their kryptonite, what's going to come back to haunt this LSU team in the postseason. The way that you're sitting right now, you're in a good shape to potentially win what Arkansas and Vanderbilt does in the last 2 weeks of the regular season. So you still have the SEC West. You still have the SEC title as well. You're still going to be in great position to host the super regional and the regional games at the box as well. So that's definitely your go-to point there. You definitely want postseason games to be at the box because this LSU team does perform well at home. But if there is going to be an issue, it's got to be – and Jay Johnson has to be able to figure out who's going to be that number 3 starter. That Christian Little, that experiment is over with. He'll probably go back to the bullpen. So who's going to step up? Do we see Thatcher Hurd come back into that number 3 spot after some good outings? Do we see Gavin Guidry? He's been phenomenal out of the pen as well, whether that was an early relief like you saw on Sunday or late relief like you saw a couple of weeks ago against South Carolina? Or do you see a guy like a freshman step up, Griffin Herring, as well? That's where the injuries really have come back to bite this team. But I think that's going to be the main concern for LSU heading into the postseason. I know that a lot of LSU fans think the same thing as well. So let's go ahead and stick on the diamond. Let's get into LSU's next series. This is LSU's final home game, regular season home games at the box. So get your tickets now. And let's go on now to previewing LSU versus Mississippi. Dogs and the Tigers will get together this weekend, and let's preview now on let's learn more about Mississippi State, where they gone on. So the Bulldogs are coming off of a home series loss against Arkansas. Arkansas come to Duty Noble Field and swept them, as Mississippi State and Ole Miss are now tied 6-18 in conference play. Mississippi State overall sits at 23-24, and they're currently on a 6-game losing streak. So this is a team that has coming into this series, that's just finding some identity in this one. They've looked lost throughout the whole entire season. The offense hasn't been the problem in this one. They have 3 guys batting over 300. They got Kellum Clark, who's been there before. He's a national champion. He's got the experience under his belt. They also have Hunter Hines. Everyone's talking about, the guy out of Florida. They're all talking about the freshman out of South Carolina, Ethan Petrie. But Hunter Hines is right up there with them. Hunter Hines has 20 home runs as well, so he has the power to really do some damage against this LSU pitching staff. And also Colton Ledbetter leads the Bulldogs. He's batting .318. So those are the 3 guys batting .300. But what's really got Mississippi State into the bind is their pitching staff. Their pitching staff ranks in one of the worst in the SEC, and it's actually dead last in the SEC. If we looked at Auburn last week, they were second to last. Looking to this week, Mississippi State has bang injury really haunted pitching staff as well, but their team ERA is 6.74. The team batting average is .283, which also ranks in the middle of the pack. So guys are pretty similar to Auburn as well. But outside of Auburn, Mississippi State is pretty much out of the NCAA tournament picture, and they're also fighting for their Hoover lives as well. They're a game back from Missouri, but they do have the head-to-head against Ole Miss, so they're technically in 13th place. But how Hoover works, the top 12 get in as well. So Mississippi State has to take at least one of these games and then really win their next series, get into that Hoover discussion as well. So this is a big series for Mississippi State. A big series for your Fighting Tigers as well. LSU coming off of a series loss against Auburn, their first series loss of the year. How will this team rebound? They're coming off of back-to-back losses. The Saturday game, they had their chances of winning. Sunday, in the first inning, after that, look completely out of it as well. So I think that this LSU team, they come back home, they get back on track. I know that Arkansas swept them as well. I'm going to go with 2 out of 3 in this one. I'll stay safe in this one. Obviously, you want this team to sweep as SEC wins as well, especially if this team wants to win the SEC West. Arkansas against South Carolina this week, so that would be huge. If LSU can sweep Mississippi State, and say that if Arkansas wins 2 out of 3 or loses a series to South Carolina, if LSU wins this series or sweeps the series as well, LSU can not only take complete control of the SEC West, but they can take complete control of that, getting that number 1 overall seed for the SEC tournament and who up at the end of May. So I think that this LSU team is going to bounce back. I think the only change that you're going to see is going to be that number 3 spot. I'm going to go and say that, Thatcher Hurd is going to go back into that number 3 Sunday role. You're going to see Thatcher Hurd. Mississippi State, I've seen them TBA. I mean, game 1, they have their starter, but game 2 and game 3s have been up in the air as well. So I don't think that we're going to know who's Mississippi State's going to be pitching until we get to the Friday, Saturday games as well. So, but it should be a pretty fun atmosphere at the box. So we'll have senior weekend. Well, it won't be their last time, though. LSU's postseason play at the box, regional, super regional. That's pretty much a guarantee. I mean, it would have to be the Titanic happening all over again for this LSU team not to host a single postseason game. At the point that LSU will bounce back after a series loss against Auburn, they will get the series victory over a struggling Mississippi State team as well. So let's stay on the diamond as we have postseason play occurring for LSU softball. They'll be facing off against Ole Miss morning. So let's get into some LSU softball. The Lady Tigers have officially clinched the number overall seed in the SEC tournament in Fayetteville, Arkansas, and they're going to be the number 6 seed going up against the number 11 seed Ole Miss. Now, this was a team that LSU faced in the regular season back at Tiger Park. They took 2 out of 3 in this one against an Ole Miss team. Now, Ole Miss won the Saturday game. It was a low-scoring battle as well. LSU's pitching has come to life. Allie Kelponen as well. Sydney Bergeron as well. That has really been the 1-2 punch for LSU. And then the offense continues to roll. You got Danica Coffey leading off. You got Taylor Pleasance, one of the best shortstops in the country. Georgia Clark with her raw power as well. So I think that LSU, coming off of a big series win against Georgia, that was a really good Georgia team. They lost game 1 in a close battle. It was a 1-3 loss for the Tigers. Out, so they have to play a doubleheader on. Tigers handled their business against the Bulldogs. They won the first game 2-1 in a pitching duel, and then the offense came to life 9-1. They got some key RBIs as well. Georgia Clark hit that that home run to really lift the offense into having a good day at Tiger Park and ending that regular season stretch strong. So the Tigers will meet at SEC Network in that game. Will conclude, and the winner of that game will go on to face number 3 seed Auburn. So that's another team that LSU is familiar with as well. Auburn did beat LSU. That was at Auburn's home field as well. So we'll see if LSU get past the number 11 seed Ole Miss, and then if they win that one, they'll go on to face. Postseason wise, I don't think that the SEC tournament is going to do anything wrong for LSU. I think that they have built a resume, top 10 RPI. They have 40 wins. They have a record of 40-14, 13 wins in the conference play. I think that LSU for sure is going to be a lock to be a top 16 seed. So they are going to be hosting regional play. So that will definitely be a fun atmosphere in Tiger Park as well. So that closes the book on our Diamond Talk. LSU softball, LSU baseball is also busy. Go ahead and conclude this episode of Bayou Bengal Bites with our annual Around Town News. Around Town News, also another accolade here, going back to the baseball team, Paul Skeens. Not only did he win SEC Pitcher of the Week, he won National Player of the Week after 15 strikeouts as well. And on the season, he's now 9-1 on the year, and also he leads the country in strikeouts of 139. So Skeens, got to give kudos to you. I mean, this dude is just a beast. He is a baller. You can have any acronym for what this guy is. Without him, I have no idea where LSU would be. But I got to give congratulations to Paul Skeens on winning National Player of the Year. So that is our Round Town News. That is Bayou Bengal Bites episode number 3. Hope everyone enjoys this week of LSU sports. Hopefully the LSU baseball Tigers can get it done against Mississippi State. We'll see if LSU softball, their team, can pick up a couple of wins in Fayetteville as well. And how about them Lady Tigers? LSU up another big transfer as well. So the 2023-2024 season is definitely shaping up to be exciting, as this season was as well. So we appreciate everyone for tuning in to yet another edition of the Triple B, and we will see you all next time. Have a good week.